Hi, Pat. So you applied, Jack, just as we were talking?
Yeah, I just did.
Perfect.
I'm about to send you that email. What do you want me to say? Just remind you to put in a general petition?
To do a general petition for to take this class instead of as your elective. I think it was listed as an elective under your degree.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look. I think it was, so I think you're okay. So, but I'll just do it anyway. Just so they should come back to you if they think there's a problem with you don't have this class or this class.
Okay.
So now that I think about it, I think it was in the degree as an elective. So you should be okay. I'll double check that. Hi, Pat. Hi, Susan. I hardly know Susan's face, but she never turned her camera on when I had her.
Well, do you think I was getting my ready every day during COVID? Come on. I'm only putting it on because I haven't seen Pat in ages.
Oh,
His speaker's off. His mic's off. Hi, Pat. Your mic's off, Pat.
no, it's not. It shows it being on. His volume's off.
We still can't hear you.
And now, Susan, now you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
But
Now
no.
I'm here.
So, Pat, I don't know if you're going to do breakout groups, but watch them if you do. Dan did, can you hear me, Pat? Okay. Dan did a breakout group with his class, and he went into the different breakout groups, and two of them couldn't hear anybody else in the breakout group. They couldn't even hear Dan when he went in there. So there's something goofy with Blackboard. Sometimes I'd had to go out and come back in to get the mic to work. Susan, how's Revit going? Revit 2.
Well, we haven't really, it's going to be interesting, I think. I'm glad he's doing what he's doing. You know, we're learning about zoning and so on. I mean, we haven't really started on the project. So.
Yeah. I forgot to ask him what his project is.
Well, he chose the site. I'm not sure if this is the project we're all doing, if we're just doing this for zoning, but anyhow.
Oh, congratulations on passing the lead. Dan says you killed.
Yeah. I'm sure that was only because of Dan's teaching, I know.
I'll tell him you said that.
I'm going to do the other one, since I just, you know, that was only the GA, and there's the, you know, the real one is the AP.
You can do, I think, so Dan has lead AP, I think it's AP without credentials or something. They have a different name for it if you don't, you know, if you haven't actually worked using lead. But great. I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah.
I gotta forward to get you reimbursed for that.
Oh, thank you. Oh, do I need to do something about getting the Revit certificate? You mentioned that.
Oh, yes. And I'll come on to Haim's class tomorrow, but you go apply for graduation on your portal.
Okay.
And you need to do that now. It has to be done by February 15th. So like Jack who's in this class is getting his associates and he just applied.
Okay.
It took seconds, right, Jack?
Yeah, you literally click a button.
Okay.
I think you have to make sure that you're registered for the correct certificate or degree.
Yeah, you have to, you click the degree and then you hit submit. And that's basically it.
Oh, Pat is back.
Are you very busy, Francis? Are you teaching a lot?
I'm teaching a lot. So I teach Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning and afternoon.
Oh.
So but Tuesday and Thursday afternoon I share with 3 other people.
Uh-huh.
So it's not consistent. I'm kind of like the room monitor for that one.
Mm-hmm.
So one is an intro class, which I've taught forever, and one is a design that's followed by model building. So that was today. So those are blended courses because they really require face-to-face. I can't teach someone to build a model on the internet.
Yeah.
So that's okay. The studio's spread out and everybody wears a mask. I try to get them to have their mask above their nose. That's my goal.
Do educators at Triton get priority for the vaccine?
We haven't heard anything yet. So I should be in, I think I'm in 1C. But the problem is that there's not enough vaccines out to do 1B. And then Oak Park has its own health department. So in theory, that should be easier. But they said, what did they say last month? They were given 900 vaccines and they have 12, because they have so many doctors and nurses. Not everybody though was, some people get it at their employer, but they had like 12,000 people who need 1B. And the first group, which was you know, seniors, and so so it'll be interesting. I'm hoping, first I thought I was in the 1B with regular teachers, but apparently higher ed is not in the same group as elementary schools. I mean, they're really trying to get the kids back in school. So, Pat, you want to see if you can talk now? You don't have your mic on. All right, I think this is a class 7, 8. No, he's got 11. I'm going to go ahead. I was just here to introduce myself. So my name is Francis Figg, and I'm the coordinator for architecture, construction technology, and renewable energy technology. So if you have any questions about those that your instructor can't answer, I'm the person that you would come to. I'm also, if you're going to take classes next semester, when we start to register in, it's in early April, I would be the one to help you register. We don't have any summer classes in architecture. Susan and Ayana, there is one class that might interest you. I don't know how quickly it's going to fill. It's a summer class in carpentry just for women. And so our carpentry instructor came up with this. And so that's a continuing ed class. So if that interests you, you could watch for that for the summer. But that's the only thing we have going on this summer. We'll probably do more continuing ed things next year. Summer is really hard to do classes. Susan was in my codes class last summer, right? And that's a hard one to do. A lot of these classes are hard to do in a 7-week period. So instead of meeting twice a week, you either have to meet twice a week for twice as long or multiple nights a week. So I don't find they work real well. They work good for 3-credit classes or classes that don't have a lot of labs. So is there anybody who is in need of I'll do a poll and ask. I think I can do a poll as a presenter. And I can't. Okay, if you're in need of a computer, if you're in any class that uses AutoCAD or Revit, come to me and I can get you a computer that I have in the studio. If you just need a general computer, they have them at the library, and they also have hotspots at the library. So if you're having internet issues, that is a place you can go get a hotspot to boost up your internet. So keep that in mind. If you are, and Pat, you have a really nice class. I don't know Alan, but I know Alejandro, Ayana, Guillermo, Jack, and Susan. So it's a nice group. This is the first semester that we're offering this class as part of the core classes in construction technology. And it is also a class that will be used for the carpentry and plumbing certificates. So if you think you're going to graduate this spring, you need to apply for graduation by February 15th, and you do that on your portal. Jack just did it, so it's pretty straightforward as long as you're already coded for that particular degree. And you'll get a reminder, probably from Joe. So Joe Crawford is my secretary, and she will send out information periodically about if we have jobs or if there's some special opportunities. One thing that you guys might want to consider is joining the architecture club, because we are going to have tours. I'm going to have a movie presentation and breakout session on the restoration of Unity Temple, and a couple of instructors have either been involved with that restoration or with Frank Lloyd Wright projects in general. So we're going to have a little breakout session. Trying to think what else. You apply for graduation on your portal, and that's about it. Pat, do you have any questions? Anything I missed? Pat's.
You know what, Francis? Hi, this is Ayana. So
Yeah.
we can join the architecture club even if we're not majoring in architecture.
You know what? The people who are ahead of it this year aren't even have anything to do with the construction. So yeah, you can. Anybody can join the clubs. So I have money to do. We're gonna do this movie thing. I have money to do a boat trip. They have meetings. So the people who are involved to get, if there's a lot of interest in the Chicago boat tour in the spring, and we should be able to do that because it did run. Pat says it's having internet trouble. Oh, thanks, Emma. Emma was in charge of the architecture club before. Join this year, Emma, because we're going to do that boat tour. They will be. He gave you the link to apply. We will be doing the boat tour. They did them last fall, so and I got a grant with monies to do it. So if you're a participant in the architecture club, you get first priority. I think I have room for 20 people. So I'll be picking a date in May, so the weather is a little bit nicer. If you're not familiar with that, the Chicago Architecture Foundation is the first one that did the boat tours. Now everybody's doing them, but they're the best ones because the people are really trained, and they take a boat down the river and talk about the architecture and the construction of the city from the river point of view, which is something you don't get to see. And it's a very different perspective. So that's a fun thing. And we'll probably do a walking tour downtown too. And then I'll probably also, last fall in the early fall, I offered to the architecture club, I did a walking tour of the Frank Lloyd Wright Historic District. Only like 3 people came, but I'll do that again in the spring for the people who've not done that. So you might be interested in that, Susan.
Yeah, yes.
I always do it. I always do it for my intro class, but I'll do it for the architecture club too. So I was on the restoration committee for about 20 years for the Frank Lloyd Wright Home and Studio, and used to give tours and give walking tours, mainly tours of the house, which I gave up. I'm busy, and I'm waiting for administrative changes over there too. So
What do
I
you
don't think
mean?
they can.
What's
I'm
gonna,
waiting for changing of the guard.
is Camille still the, isn't it Camille that who was the chief, not for the house, but for the foundation?
No, Camille Wilson White.
Yeah.
She's head of the Oak Park Arts Council. That's very different.
Oh,
Camille's great. No,
Okay.
it's the person who's head of the home and studio. It's a long, sordid story, but I just don't want to be involved while she's there.
okay.
So the other one that, well, hopefully you'll be working, but the other class that might interest you, Susan, is the history class. We have a great history instructor.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You know what, I think
I'm out for the future, not right now.
I've done my time in architectural history, I must say.
Oh, yeah. Oh, duh. Yeah, that's right. Okay. We are going to do a summer class. I think it won't be this summer. I think it'll be next summer on Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh,
Just
good.
focusing on Frank Lloyd Wright. That'll be continuing that also. And Pat looks like he left again. So does anybody have any questions for me? Hopefully, cross our fingers, Pat gets his voice back. So Emma, I read your letter. I think it says that you can apply next semester, so I would just try it. Or you could apply over the summer.
I'll give it
I
a
don't.
shot for over the summer. They worded it so funny, but like, I don't. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I don't think I'm going to be able to get them both this semester though.
Right. So do you have will you get the construction technology and the architecture degree?
I should get both. I got all the requirements for both. If I'm getting one of them, I should be getting. I've applied for both of them at the same time. So if I'm getting one, I'm getting the other.
Okay. Okay. Great. Wonderful.
Yep.
All right. Is there anybody here who has need for a computer? Just raise your hand so I have a sense if anybody does. Still can't hear Pat. Can't think of anything else I have. I just wanted to introduce you. If you're continuing on in the program, meet with me to pick your schedule. But Emma and Jack are done. Susan, you're getting the Revit certificate. Alejandro, are you in carpentry this semester? Okay, good. So you guys met already. Okay, Pat's gonna use his phone.
Francis, how did the class, the solar, etc. Class go or program go? Did you get a lot of interest?
Oh, the renewable energy, we had like 11 people for the fall, which was good because they only started signing people up 2 weeks before school started. Yeah. The pandemic just really killed all our advertisement and stuff. We ran the introduction to renewable energy this semester as well as last semester. So we have, that's quite big, but I also made it part of the construction technology and an option in architecture. So there will always be a little bit more interest in that. But, we're moving along. We have a space that we're supposed to be getting, dedicated space, and IBEW is moving right along. So if you know of anybody who'd be interested in, right now they have scholarships. I don't know how long that will continue, but hopefully for a while they have relationships with high schools, and we are going to be hopefully getting some of the students from high schools transferring over. So it's moving along. Any new program is slow. This one should have been a bigger send off, but the
Mhm.
pandemic, just nothing happened in the spring and
It was a
early
really
summer.
good class.
Did you like it, Emmett?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. It's different persons teaching it this semester, but it's really interesting information about, the whole history and what's happening with renewable energy.
Hmm.
Definitely
Hey,
puts a
guys.
lot of stuff in
Can you hear me
perspective.
now?
Too. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, sorry. I never had that problem, so.
Okay, Pat, I'm going to sign off. I think I covered everything. You
Yes,
get anybody who comes on? Did you hear me?
I could hear you while you were talking, Francis.
Okay, so if you get anybody else that comes on to your class, you've got a great group. I know almost everybody on the group, so
Cool.
should be a good class.
Yeah, it's, they were very involved last week, so that was great.
Okay, wonderful. I will see everybody. Reach out to me if you need any help, and I'm in the studio Monday through Thursday pretty much all during the day. So if anybody wants to come over there and talk to me too. I teach, so just give me a shout out that you're coming. Again, if you find anybody has internet issues, send them over to me. I'll either help them get a computer at the library, or if they're in AutoCAD or Revit, they're going to need one of the computers I have.
Gotcha. Will do.
Okay. All right. Thanks,
a lot,
Pat.
Francis. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. So how bad does the audio sound this way?
It could be worse.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
terrible.
Okay. Sorry, yeah, it always happens when you go to start something and then you're panicking, it gets that much harder to do. So, thanks guys for waiting. As far as, I think you guys kind of got the homework. It wasn't really due today. We're going to make it, end of the week just because, last week was a weird week. Anything else on class issues before we start? Okay. So I'm going to go back over a little bit of the stuff we just kind of started talking in general. Hold on, let me stop. We just kind of started talking in general about, scheduling, what is it, how construction projects are, use the schedule. I had a couple things and some stuff from the book. The first two chapters are kind of introduction stuff. But in this class, I'd like to save some time at the end to show, Susan, you may have seen this, or you might be exposed to this in the Revit class, but, one of the cool things with scheduling now is they input schedule into the model. And so as it, hey, sorry guys, the schedule is then, it'll show the building and the components actually being built according to the schedule. So it'll show, the exterior steel for 10 days being erected. It'll show the pouring of the concrete. It'll show the walls coming on. It's pretty cool. It's, the 3D software, BIM, all that kind of thing. They're trying to integrate, all parts of a construction process into the Revit software or the, what other kinds, Inventor, whatever other kinds of software that you're using. And it's pretty cool. And to kind of see it, be assembled according to the schedule that you input, it's pretty fun watching it. And the other part of it is, I wanted to show you, in addition to that part of it, there's also software that they're developing, and this is an add-on, I think. It's not Revit, but in addition to actually being able to watch the building per the schedule that's input, it'll do visual scanning, meaning they can set up a camera, and that camera will know what it's supposed to be seeing in terms of the BIM model. So that camera will be watching the construction happen, and it'll actually identify something that doesn't match the model. Like literally, it kind of overlays the model onto the actual camera vision field, and it'll send an alert. Hey, this pipe wasn't planned to be there per the model. Is that supposed to be there? It's just pretty cool stuff. It seems like it's kind of, to some people who have been in it for a long time, it might seem really futuristic, but, they're already doing it. They're already using this stuff in the field. So I just thought, those are kind of more of the interesting parts of scheduling. Scheduling obviously can get a bit dry sometimes. I understand that, it's not the most exciting topic, but it is, one of the base parts of, construction. Cost, schedule, scope. Those are like the triumvirate of whatever in scheduling. So, in construction actually. So being able to, understand the schedule is critical. And the people that know how to use the tools, meaning the schedule, all the tools associated, construction planning software. It's all part of the same. It's all part of the same process. It's just for different tools used for different things, and how those tools interact. That's all important to understand as we try to, learn as much as we can and try to improve upon, construction projects that we're working on. A lot, and I don't want to make it sound like that, construction is all bad or something like that, but there's a lot of mistakes and miscommunications. I mean, there's as much of that in construction almost as there is good communication. And, all of these tools, all of these devices we use, all that kind of stuff, it's all towards trying to do better, trying to communicate better. Really is pretty much the golden rule in this, is to try to communicate what you're doing and, who's doing what and when to whom. That helps everybody, and it helps, the project be more successful. So, we talked a little bit last week, and what the general basics of a construction schedule are. And if you look at the book and the project management institute, that's like the kind of the governing board for project management in the United States. They use planning and scheduling. You'll hear those words a lot. You hear it all the time in our textbook. You get sick of reading those words as you go by. But to understand the schedule, you got to understand. We got to be able to talk to each other. We got to understand what everybody is saying and we try to be precise in our language. It's just so understanding what is the actual meaning behind the words. It's kind of the base of all your understanding of the subject. So, chapter 1 of the book kind of gave an overview of what scheduling is, what's the difference between planning and scheduling, projects, programs, all that stuff. First thing you see up there is kind of just to go back and define the project. What is a project? When we say project, what do we mean? Is it a task? Can a task be a project? Yeah, in the right situation. Yeah, you could be doing one individual action, but when you got to plan it, when you got to schedule it, that can make it a project. But just it's kind of like from bird's eye view, and then focusing in tighter and tighter and tighter at the closest level, at the smallest, most finite level. You're looking at the sub projects that can be part of another larger project. Your project might have certain parts of it that you consider a sub project. Not everything not each task isn't a sub-project, but I think in the book they gave some good examples of, okay, I'm building a new, Burger King over here, and I have to do some work out in the street. That's a complicated little action itself. I have to divert traffic. I have to hire flaggers to be out there to make sure nobody runs into the excavator while it's out there. That work in the street, that sewer connection, whatever it is, that can be a sub-project. A sub-project just means it can be a group of actions, it can be one action, but it means it is, related to each other. It's a smaller piece inside the larger project. Just gives you, you might be tracking that specific sub-project a lot more. You might need to track that in a different way than you are the project. You might be going through a different entity. You might be paying for it out of different funds. So sometimes there is a need just to track a sub-project. Not all the time. Sometimes there is, and it is helpful just to be able to break it out. Sometimes you'll make a schedule separate, totally, just for that sub-project. Because, I know you guys have kind of looked through the book maybe, and these project schedules can get pretty, chaotic and full of, pretty dense, full of information, hard to read at that point. So being able to break out a sub-project on a separate piece of paper or a separate spreadsheet, whatever it is, it does help a lot. The project, it's kind of like the base word in construction, and this, there's different ways to define it, but I thought the one that makes the most sense for me, a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. And you guys understand, everybody wishes construction was the same product, same results every time. You could be building the exact same building, and it's in two different locations, and you'll have different authorities. You'll have different people working on it. You'll have, different laws, building code regulations, all that stuff. Even identical products, even identical buildings, facilities, whatever it is, there can be so much variation in them where one is, can be considered hugely successful, and you can build the other one for the same amount of money, but it could be considered, it won't be considered, well, it could be considered not a failure, obviously, but it can be considered, we could have done a lot better on that, just based on, what the permitting is, what the local labor is, all that kind of stuff. So when we're talking about project, that's the unique part to me. That's part of the, when I see that definition, I try to understand, like, well, unique, why is it, what makes it unique? It's just, and this isn't, there's lots of different definitions, but for me, this was, kind of the easiest way to understand it. And it's also temporary. A construction project, sometimes it can go on for years. It could be 5 years, obviously, very few of them are, but, when you're doing big infrastructure jobs, the deep tunnel, that went on for a long time. I don't know how many, some of you younger people might not remember that or weren't around for it. Does anybody remember the deep tunnel project? Just speak up if you want to.
I do, Pat.
All right, what was it? Do you remember what it was for?
Well, I think it was when we have big weather events, the system gets overloaded, and then we get sewage that it gets combined and it overflows into the lake. Is that the background?
Yeah, exactly. There's, Chicago as a city and some of the surrounding suburbs, a couple things are going on there. One, there's a combined sewer, meaning they don't have separate piping in the street for actual sewage coming from, your drain lines and sewer lines in your house, and the water drip coming in during like Susan said, like a storm, a snowstorm or melting, all that kind of stuff. It all has to go somewhere. Some of it can percolate into the ground. If you got streets, you got impervious surfaces, it's got to go somewhere. And so it goes down into the, sewer grates along the side of the street, wherever it is. And, there was, when we get a bad one, I don't know where about you guys, but actually I live in Riverside, which is kind of a bad spot for it. It's not even, sometimes it's not even groundwater coming up from outside. It could be sewer. The sewer can get overwhelmed and actually push sewage up into houses. So to try to alleviate that problem, the deep tunnel project was to try to provide additional stormwater storage. Back in the day, they used to just open the locks and let it flow out into Lake Michigan, and that isn't ideal because it's all coming from the treatment plant. So all the sewer pipes go to the treatment plant, and when it's overloaded, they just let it bypass the treatment plant, and it literally will go out to the lake, in some areas out to the local waterways, and nobody wants that in your drinking water. But what do you do with it? You can't stop it. So the deep tunnel project, man, it went on for, it was at least 15 years, I believe. I'd have to look that up. But it was basically a giant, I think it was around 10 or 12 feet tunnel that they dug from, one part of Chicago, and it was, it was in the tens of miles. And, I think it would be considered considered a success. Actually, I think they just finished, there's a quarry right over when you're heading over to Indiana. There you go, if you're on 294 or 8094, whatever it is over there. As you're driving into Indiana, before you get there, you drive over a quarry. And that was the latest. I think that was actually even part of the same project. It might have been a sub-project. But they were going to try to, bring the stormwater, the overflow stormwater to there, and as a way to keep it in, store it. And so it's not overwhelming the system. They can let it fill up, as much as they want there. And then as the water treatment plants kind of pick up the slack and trying to, when they're processing everything, then we can put it back through into the system, and the water, it can be then treated. And so to try to avoid, it backing up into houses or going into the waterways, the lakes, all that kind of stuff. Long story, I know that sounded like, but the point being, when we say temporary, that can have a lot of different meanings. But in this case, for a project, and the important thing here, the temporary thing is the project, the program, which you see a lot in the, different books and all that kind of, in different organizations. You can have a project manager. Obviously, you understand what a project manager does. That person, he or she manages projects. A program, you can have also a program manager, and that program manager, programs might be a bunch of related projects or services, and sometimes they're all, kind of closely related. They don't have to be, but they're controlled and managed usually by a single person or a single group. So, examples of programs might be what the University of Illinois is about to undertake. They're going to replace all their air handlers with better filtration because of COVID. Now, is that a project or a program? It honestly could be either. A program would mean, well, we're going to do it piecemeal, and when there is a project to renovate a space, we'll replace the air handler serving that area with a higher degree of filtration. When you increase the filtration, you got to have a bigger fan. There's lots of other considerations with that, but that would go on kind of indefinitely. I believe they're going to do it more like a project. Might be a 10-year project, might be a 10-year, you might consider it a program. It just matters how you're talking about it. But if they're going to go in all at once, try to get, or, when I say at once, it's a relative term, try to get all the air handlers changed quickly. So even if it's 3 years old and doesn't need to be replaced, if it doesn't have the right filtration, they might go in before its useful life is over and replace it. So that would be a shorter time frame. That would be more like a project. The program, you'll have program managers that are in charge of, the maintenance. If your job is to go around and replace all the parking lot lighting as the bulbs burn out, that can be a program. Programs are ongoing. Projects are temporary. It's fairly. Sometimes it seems like a small, point to make, but it is how it's paid for can really be affected by whether it being a program or a project. If it's a program, it may or may not be called what's considered capital. Capital projects are usually when you're installing or replacing capital goods. So assets, air handlers, fans, any kind of asset. If you're just going in and fixing it, that's not a capital project. It's more of a maintenance project or a maintenance program. When you're going in with funds to put something that was never there or build it out for a new researcher that was never there, then it can become a capital fund. And the only reason that matters is because sometimes it gets paid for differently, and how that money is allotted can make a difference and make a lot of difference on the project and taxes and all that stuff. Project, program, the other division is portfolio. That just means it's under one person, but portfolio doesn't all have to be doing the same scope of work. The portfolio is more about a group of projects that one person is managing. So, because they become kind of the expert in it, and they manage all the portfolio of facilities or projects in order to get an economy of scale when that person, he or she, is buying, say, equipment, durable goods, all that kind of stuff. If it's spread between 5 different people, well, they're all placed in separate orders, that kind of thing. The portfolio of buildings, the industrial portfolio, is all ran by Jan, and the healthcare portfolio of the buildings we own is run by Todd. It's just it's a grouping of buildings, kind of like a program, but it's not so much a it doesn't have to be the same scope, the same kind of work. Even it's more about the buildings and the type of buildings they are, and the person managing them or the group managing them. So that's just trying to give you guys some of the definition of this stuff. I know you probably got through this on chapter 1, but it does help to kind of understand what we're talking about. They mentioned the PMI in this in the textbook a lot. I see that. That's the Project Management Institute, and that's I think I just said earlier, the governing body in charge of project management and certifications for project management. A lot of times you'll be, that textbook, you have to study it if you want to get certified. A lot of times, all the words start seeming very similar to each other, and it gets hard to kind of differentiate. Well, if you at least have some different idea about why the words are different, it helps you remember the differences between the programs and the projects and all that stuff. Planning versus scheduling. Planning is, it's the bigger picture. It's it's not just related to time. So planning might be, I sent out all my construction documents. I'm getting pricing back from people. Planning can be selecting a contractor. Planning can be setting up logistics and rental of a fence, all that kind of stuff. All of that is planning. There can be scheduling inside that effort, but it is the overall effort. It's not just, worrying about time and duration and sequence. There could be lots of different types of activities inside planning. Again, kind of like portfolio and program, or the bird's eye view of project and sub-project. Planning and scheduling are a little bit like that. Planning is an overall effort. Scheduling is a little more focused on one specific criteria, namely timing and sequence, that kind of thing. And that defines the project in a lot of ways. The budget, scope, and schedule. I know I've said that a bunch of times, but the schedule, those three are very interrelated, and the schedule will definitely be affected. It's kind of, in a lot of ways, sometimes it's a reciprocal relationship, sometimes it's a, inverse, sometimes it's a linear relationship. All that just means, if I want to compress the time, it might cost me more. So to shorten the time, you need more money, or to expand the scope, you need more money. The same thing, schedule. You can adjust the schedule in a project. And that could be part of your planning too, because you're altering your cost and using your schedule to alter the cost. It's a resource. Time is a resource, just like labor and material, durable goods, all that kind of stuff. It is a resource to be used for control and for tracking and all that stuff. So planning, that's kind of the who, what, I talked about. There's a lot more parts of planning than there are in scheduling. Scheduling would be the when a bit and somewhat of the how, but planning, like I said, just has a lot more parts and pieces to it inside of the overall planning umbrella. Oftentimes when we're talking about a schedule, well, the process that we're trying to learn it's project management. And whether you are a project manager, or you are an installer, or you're a tradesman, you are a permanent official, all of those people can affect the project. And when you're trying to control the project, you got to have a well-defined and kind of organized plan on how you're going to do it. Lots of different variables, like I said. A project management plan, it's just kind of documentation of how, why, when, how much, all that kind of stuff. Project management plan is like a roadmap for how you're going to get through a project. It's good for a lot of different reasons. Input, tracking, all that stuff. It's communication. At the end of the day, it always goes back to communication in construction and pretty much life and all that stuff. A plan written out. A lot of people don't love the process of sitting down and documenting exactly what you're going to do, and you may want to just, I know what I'm going to do, don't worry about it. That's not how it works in construction. If you're really putting yourself at a risk. It's not about questioning how you're going to do it. It's more about getting input from everybody, giving good communication to everybody, and helping everybody else understand what you're planning, and vice versa. Approval and agreement as well. The project management plan. Project management plan will have a schedule in it. It'll have other documentation as well. In very few situations is someone else not involved in a good-sized construction project. There's going to be either an owner, a contractor, architects, engineers, all that kind of stuff. The project management plan, when everybody can look at it and when everybody can see and, have input on how to move forward, you do want to try to have some way to document that. And you can have that in the project management plan. You could have it as a sign off. Everybody says yes or no, or I've looked at this. It doesn't have to be approval. It could just be I've reviewed it, I'm not approving it, all that kind of stuff. But you want to at least be able to, look back and say, I tried the best way I know how to communicate my schedule, my project management plan. If it didn't work out, at least I was trying to get it in front of other people, get input, all that kind of information. So documentation, project management is a lot about documentation, organization. A lot of people will say, yeah, you're just trying to cover your own behind because you're just trying to pass the buck. That's not it at all. Documentation, organization, it helps you think about what you're doing, what you're talking about. It helps you organize your thoughts, and that leads to a better project for everybody, a better plan for everybody. So sometimes it seems like paperwork. It's a lot more than that. It's not, project management. You might not be out using a tool out in the field, but you're still using what the project management plan, schedule, all that kind of stuff. You're still using tools and trying to figure out how to have the best project, how to have the most successful project. So it's, like I said, sometimes it might seem trivial. Hey, we got to move forward. We can't worry about having a piece of paper out here in front of everybody. That's not the case. The piece of paper is how you guys and we all define, communicate our ideas, all that kind of stuff. Project controls. Project controls is just, it's a way of tracking and monitoring, really. I've worked in places, I worked at ComEd as a project manager, and there was actually a whole group. There's a project management group. There was a labor, the field labor, the electricians, and then there was a department called project controls. And in that project controls group, they would have schedulers, estimators, cost control engineers. Project controls is just a way of defining, monitoring. Again, it's that communication portion of it, but this actually adds in the monitoring of it. And when you hear the word monitoring or tracking, it sounds negative. This is as useful for the project manager as it is for maybe their bosses, the executives. It's not about judging you, it's about judging the project and seeing if you're off course or if you have opportunity here. There might be an opportunity to save some money by, you have a break in the schedule and you talk to your electrician and they have availability and you're able to get something done early, which might save you some rental costs and you can send some equipment back that you've been having on site. It's, and again, just like planning had a lot of different components and served a lot of different functions and covered a lot of different topics. Same thing with project controls. Project controls are more like the mechanisms we use and the tools we have available for those, to see if your project is, over budget. And, you find out, 1/3 of the way in, hey, I'm over budget. Why am I over budget? Well, we're using too much labor. Why are we using too much labor? We've had bad weather. We've had to, compress time frames on our schedule. So in order to compress time frames, I have to pay overtime or had to bring in more guys because, we have to get it done in a lesser amount of time. The project controls is how you are able to visualize it, to see it. It gives you, a window into being able to look at the parameters that are within your project and what you can do to affect it. What the risks are, what the action plan is to make the correction, to try to bring it back into the proper timing, schedule, or costs, or, just to try to help the whole team. A project is successful when, the communication is good throughout, you have a lot better chance of success than if it's one person doing everything and, you know, doesn't want anybody to bother them. And, you know, construction is a big, complicated beast, and the more clear and helpful you can be in trying to explain your project to others, the better chance you have of meeting your goals, exceeding your goals, all that kind of stuff. And project controls obviously is not just schedule, it's not just cost. It can be safety. You can make choices that affect, you know, the safety is a big thing in a lot of organizations, and obviously safety is a big thing. You know, the health and welfare of your workforce is, you know, the primary concern all the time. If you see a risk to somebody because we're trying to do it faster, so yeah, I can't have two guys directing traffic, I can only have one. That's you know, you're risking too much for something that's, you know, not nearly as important as the safety of your workforce. Satisfaction can be another thing. It's, you know, you might be doing work in a building where you have, you know, it's in use. It's a hospital building, and you can't just shut the building down so you can do your construction project. You have to be very, you know, you have to be very aware of who's around you, how you're impacting the place, how you're interfering with, you know, their use of the space. You know, sometimes you can see that if you can track project surveys, there's different ways to track that, but satisfaction and approval, and, you know, how well you are interacting or staying out of the way of the owner's staff, you know, that's another thing that, you know, you can spend money to increase it. You can cut corners, and maybe that owner doesn't care too much about it, but it's all just another parameter in a construction project that controls can help you have visibility to and identify impacts and costs and all that stuff. Scheduling. Owners and contractors, you know, the schedule is usually created in a typical construction project. You know, before construction begins, it might be someone on the owner's side that's maintaining a project schedule in terms of their milestones that are important to them, and that might be financing, or that might be IDPH approval. All of those things, you know, originally the owner might be doing it, but usually once construction starts, the scheduling for the project falls into the hands of the contractor. You know, the schedule is used and is needed by each group for different reasons. I think, you know, they're called out pretty well in the book. I thought they gave pretty good examples. But, you know, some of the reasons are different. Cash flow can be a big thing in terms of the contractor. Cash flow, you know, if he pays his guys or if he pays his subs, he expects to be paid by the owner. So if the owner is late in paying him because the loan didn't originate yet, or all that kind of thing, you know, schedule then gets hit with that. And so the reasoning for each party's use of the schedule, they can be similar, but they can also some of them are unique. There's, you know, not so much logistics with the owner during construction, but there might be logistics in terms of their staff and their use of the spaces around it. You know, so something like that. We don't want jackhammering while someone's getting into RMI or MRI, so we might have that scheduled for off hours or something like that. Cash flow, we talked about measuring performance improvement, seeing the effects of the changes that you implement. That's when you do make efforts to adjust or to correct your schedule, you want to be able to see if that's working, if you're moving up your end date. And then that's one of the other things on a schedule is what is the data completion? What, okay, we're done with our job. Does that mean all the guys are out of there? Does that mean the owner gave me the final check? That's an important thing that you got to consider for your schedule. Because there's different things can affect each party, and when it's not established clearly on your schedule, it's easy to have a misunderstanding where, to me, when I get the certificate of occupancy or substantial completion, that's completion to me, whereas to the owner, that might not work for them at all. And oftentimes they want to take over the space early, or at least use parts of the space early. At that point, you're getting into warranty issues. You're getting into, you're going to run into a lot of problems because their use of the space while you're still working on it. How do you gauge what somebody might have, walked by and broken inside a bathroom or something like that? So it's establishing completion, and the best way to do that is on your schedule. It's a visual representation that you guys can all agree on and kind of, look for contractually in the schedule how to define completion, what mitigating factors could mean, what parts of it might have effects on payment, all that kind of stuff. Let's see. And then, 1 second. There's also information, who does the scheduling? Well, in some cases, it's going to be the project manager who's actually making on his own schedule. Sometimes when you're in a big organization and it has a lot of backup, in that case, you might have someone that does nothing all day but scheduling. That just depends on who you are or where you're working, the organization you work for, how big it is, and how much work you're doing. Maybe you don't need a certain person that just does scheduling all day. Maybe it's a secondary task for a project engineer that came on board. It's also something where the communication comes in big, because nobody knows everything about all the different parts of construction, and we talked about previously, or I rambled about previously, about how nobody, there's so many different trades, there's so many different players on the construction team. Nobody can be an expert in everything. And when you're not an expert and you try to make decisions based on, knowledge you don't have, you're going to run into trouble. So, as a scheduler, the best scheduler is going to say, I'm not sure how long it takes to pour, 2,000 feet of flat concrete and cut in saw joints and all that. I'm not sure how long that takes. How do you find out? There's resources. There are computer programs that might have some, information in them. There's, paper resources, means, all those kind of things. Some of them will have durations, all that kind of thing. Your best bet is always to talk to the guy that does it. That person knows the best in terms of how long something will take, what the factors are that could cause it to take longer or shorter, all that kind of thing. So it's a big thing to make sure if you're a scheduler, you get on the phone, you talk to somebody. You don't want to make decisions on information you don't have. Try to get some input. Talk to, and it's good to talk to different people. One place I was at, the owner said, if you let the guys doing the work define how long it's going to take, you'll lose every bid. And obviously that's a pertinent point. When you are the guy that's responsible for, or the girl that's responsible for installing something, you don't want to be under pressure because you got to get it done in 6 hours when, I'd rather have 12 hours, but, the budget might not work for that. So it's a balance. It's a game of knowing how far you can go, what your best case scenarios are, what your worst case scenarios are. All those situations will help you be able to try to gauge, how to put it onto the schedule. You don't want to make something impossible and then, you know, look like you don't know what you're talking about. At the same time, you don't want to, you know, look like you don't know what you're talking about the other way by saying that it's going to take 2 weeks when it should be 4 days. Schedulers, like I said, they're often in they can be, you know, for the construction, a lot of the large general contractors do have kind of a dedicated scheduling group, or, you know, again, it might be a controls group with estimators and schedulers. Small places, again, it's a tool that you can use and that anybody can get good at, but it's just a case of knowing how to do it and having the will to do it. Like I said, the means and methods, it's real hard for anybody to know everything, but it is best if you're going to be a scheduler. It's hard to walk out of you know, school or high school or wherever you are and rock it right into the job of scheduler. The better you know, path, if you're going to do something like that in construction, is to try to be around it, try to see, you know, physically how long, you know, how two guys, how much work they do in a day, the type of systems that different people work on. All that information being in the field can be really helpful, because a scheduler doesn't, you know, they might get out once a week if they're lucky, but in most cases they're in the office putting together the documentation, talking to all the different project managers, all that kind of stuff. So in any case, some field exposure can help you, and it doesn't mean you're installing. You could be a project engineer or a project assistant. Just being out, seeing it happen, helps you understand a little bit better about how the building goes up, how the facility is put together. And, you know, sometimes it looks like a huge Herculean effort when you see 200,000 feet of concrete in a warehouse. How the heck do you pour all that at once? You know, oh, well, we got 3 guys. I'm in a, you know, little cart did it. It helps you, you know, appreciate what you can get from people working together, and, you know, all the various tricks and methods they have to do work and to make it look very, you know, pleasing to the eye, and how it's amazing to see how well some of the tradesmen can, you know, perform, and, you know, the speed at which they do it is also pretty amazing. So resources, there is some literature, there's different methods. When you look at estimating software, it'll often have some duration information in there. RS means, the cost data books, they'll have duration information in there. It'll tell you how many units one man or woman can do in a day, or a team of people can do in a day. Your best resource is your own company. The people who you are scheduling for will have the best feel for it. And, you know, as I said, you just have to take some stuff with a grain of salt. But, you know, one company might have different tools and different workforce and does it you know, not according to national average or not according to RS means. So, you know, wherever you are, your best resources is the labor that's out there, and past projects, all that information that you have already, you know, from doing work previously. And the certification, there's lots of different certifications out there. You can see in the book, if you have any interest in it. Again, Project Management Institute, I believe, has some certification for scheduling, but, you know, there's a bunch of other ones that can help you learn how to do it, and you get a certification out of it that you can show your potential employer that, you know, you at least have been trained somewhat in that skill, and, you know, you cared enough about that skill to go get training for it. That helps a lot too. Show somebody's interested in it and it's not just a job to them. It's 8:08. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, guys, and then we will get back on. I'd like to, again, I wanted to kind of show a couple of the videos of the implementation of schedule within, you know, some of the building software. So we'll start back up at it's 8:09. We'll start back up at 8:15. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. I'm back. Let me just confirm it's still recording and whatnot. There it is. Sharing notification. Okay. I'll get going now. Does anybody have any questions on kind of the stuff we went over? You know, the first chapter and really the first two chapters are, you know, kind of giving you more of a baseline to understand the stuff we talked about later. There's not a ton of information in terms of, you know, different types of ideas. Just helps us. They are good explanations of the terms and the how to define a lot of the basic points we use in scheduling. One of the things we didn't talk about too much but with the schedule of the software that's used, scheduling can get, you know, fairly complicated. You could be, you know, loading resources into it. You can be you know, your schedule could be feeding into your cost data, and, you know, they can get pretty complicated is my main point. The interactions between tasks, you know, one has to go before the other, or there's lots of ways to show a lot of different information for a schedule. Software, there's a lot of different softwares, how it's used, you know, and when we're talking about software to create a schedule, sometimes we're talking about, you know, literally creating the schedule, the piece of paper. You know, just a schedule in itself, you know, is a tool, and a lot of times it's a visual tool. I think we actually talk about it in the book. It's a good way to show somebody graphically, you know, how long certain activities are, and, you know, how much of the project they take up, all that kind of stuff. And then when you're also talking about software, you know, there's you know, infinite degrees of integration on how you can use the information in your schedule and how it affects other tools you're using. We talked a little last week about which softwares we were using, or we were going to try to spend some time with in this class. I am going to introduce, and I've talked to a couple different people at construction companies about, you know, what they use. Primavera is one of them, P6 it's called. That's, I think, probably the most prevalent in the industry. There's a couple others that are, you know, Microsoft Project, often used by owners because owners sometimes don't have specialty construction software, so they might not have access to things. So a lot of times owners will create schedules in Project, and a lot of general contractors use P6. There's a third one that someone from Pepper Construction showed me, and I thought it had a lot of good information on it. So I'm trying to get a consultation on that one that we can use it. And as well, like I said, there's also integration into building modeling software that I'll show you after we finish up with the lecture part of it. And I don't know, there was, you know, three main tenets of scheduling. The tripod they show in the unit, the human factor. You know, a good scheduler can make or break your project, and whether or not you know, can understand what they're doing, or you try to give them the best information you can, give them access, give them bring them out to the site, help them understand your project. You know, you have a better chance of success that way. Technology, we just talked a little bit about software. It can be, you know, hugely important. You know, it is a visual medium, and you know, it is, you know, representative. You can look at a schedule, you can get a good idea for it, but it's also, with a complicated project, that can be the death of the schedule too. You have so many activities, it turns into a, you know, 14-page document with different listings on each side, and you know, the weeks. If it's a 1.5-year project, it's, you know, got to be printed at such a scale that you can understand it. So that's where software also helps. It can help you, you know, represent things and, you know, break up information where you only have the most, you know, important things for the site, you know, the site utilities guy or whoever it is. The software can present it in different ways, and can, you know, as I say, integrate it into other parts of your project controls, your budget stuff, your labor reporting, all that kind of stuff. Software is, you know, and hardware as well in certain situations. It can't be overstated how beneficial it can be in helping you run a project. The other third part of that of good scheduling is management. Having an owner or a boss or a manager that values knows how important the scheduler is, how, you know, you can only do so much and, you know, asking questions and whatnot of your project manager, but the scheduler, you know, gets another view of it. He or she can be, you know, invaluable in helping you oversee a project or oversee a program, a group of project managers, whatever it is. The scheduler knows how long stuff's taking. If they see slippage, the project manager might think he can, you know, pull it back or change something and do something better. They'll catch up. You know, not that the scheduler is a snitch, but it's more along the lines of, you know, working with their project manager, getting resources from their management to help, you know, get the project back on track. Try to, you know, get some input from everybody, reassign resources, throw extra guys, whatever you got to do. The scheduler is, you know, has the best look on when they can see that, you know, they're not going to make their deadline. There's not enough time. There's not enough hours in the day for them. So those are the three triumvirates, the tripod of good scheduling. Anything else on chapter 1? I don't know if you guys have gotten a chance to look at the homework, but you know, I thought the explanations are good. I know, like I said, I find that a lot of times the definitions seem very similar to each other and kind of run together, and they're hard to differentiate. I understand, and I've had the same problem, but they do have good, some of them have good points, and, you know, I'm not going to be looking to trick anybody and ask the difference between two very similar, you know, project management and project monitoring. That's not the important thing. It's to understand the concepts and the tools that are available and how to use the tools for the job you're doing, and how you can do it in the best way you can and be as successful as you can. Anything on chapter 1? Chapter 2 was we're just going to go over the bar charts, Gantt charts real quick. Anything else? Does anybody general questions about scheduling or the job of scheduling, that kind of thing? All right. So chapter 2 it's all about the bar charts. That's the primary form that people use in scheduling to represent the project, the time frames, the duration, the sequence. In most, I've never seen anything different. The x-axis, meaning the horizontal horizontal timeline, that's literally the timeline. When you see a bar chart, it's representing, different activities which are shown on the y-axis, scope, whatever. Those, the size of the bar chart relative, or the size of the bar in a certain task tells you how long that task is going to take and when it's going to happen on the project, the duration of time, what has to happen before it. In some cases, which we'll go over in different areas when we're talking about precedent and all that, how to show that the very specific parts of that. And you can see kind of these three examples on they're from the book. Schedules can look really different, and the degree of the preciseness and how accurate and how much you're breaking down. One task can often be broken down into many other tasks. The complexity, how much information you're trying to get across on the schedule can, as you can see here, you can often confuse somebody if you have too much information and they don't know what they're looking at. So maybe you just need maybe you're giving it to a homeowner and you're remodeling their house. You want to be, professional and give them an idea of what's happening when, so you make up a schedule. That top one with just, probably made in Excel or might be project, but it can provide all the information they need. You don't have to put, if you put unnecessary information, in a lot of cases you end up, confusing people and burying the actual information you're trying to convey. That said, the simpleness of the bars and the visual design of the bar chart, as you need to add more information, like I said, you can kind of clutter it up. But that's often, that extra information is often needed. It's hard to read exactly sometimes how far the bar part goes or what you're looking at. So you might put another column in there and it says duration. And, as you add those different columns and information and headings, all that kind of stuff, it becomes harder and harder to read. So the simpleness of the bar chart also ends up being sometimes something you have to fight against is, it's a good visual representation, but it has its limits. How do you print a schedule that has, 150 different tasks on it that extend over a year and a half? Well, then you got to compress a lot of things. I'm not showing weekly tasks. I'm just showing monthly tasks. And then you lose some of the visibility that you're trying to get across in the first place. The other part of bar graphs is trying to provide a legend. Often you do have a lot of information on a bar chart, and it gets to be difficult to understand if you don't understand what you're looking at. When you have, colors meaning one thing and arrows pointing down for the critical path, something like that, you want to have some kind of legend there in the visual so you can, so people know what you're talking about. It's often when we're in construction, we're communicating with people who haven't been in construction. So, something that might be obvious to you as a project manager, as an electrician, as a plumber, might not be obvious to them. So the goal of all of it is to try to be as plain and clear with these tools, not to confuse and obscure the points. And, that's your best bet in terms of communication, and it'll get your point across. and it'll help you visually organize. It helps you maintain it in your mind, how long, the project takes, what kind of extra float you have in there where you can, you get rained out 2 days, all that kind of stuff. The schedule is where it's recorded, where you can use it. It's a tool of analysis and tracking as well as project control. Other than that, Gantt charts are pretty simple. There's not too much else to them. I think the homework for chapter 2, there's not a lot of information in chapter 2. We only got about 3 pages. But the definitions, as-built schedules, plan schedules, kind of talked a little bit about that kind of information. You're using different schedules at different times. If you're, often you need to not just produce a schedule once. Often when you sign a contract, it'll say provide the schedule along with your proposal. That's, a living document once you get in construction, or you may have a whole new document, but it's if you don't update it, show exactly where you are versus where you plan to be.
Hey, Pat, we lost your sound.
I think it's to do with my phone and the computer.